Hello, this is Billa Rajendra, lecturer in English, Government Degree College Mantane, District Peddapalli. My email ID is English Raju2 ENGLISH RAJA2 RAJA RAJU number 2 at the rate of gmail.com. Today, we would like to discuss about communication skills in English and just try to know how we are going to communicate with each other. So basically, language is meant for communication. Language is meant for communication. So, why do we use language? We use the language because of transformation of information. Transformation of information. And for that purpose, we use the language. And in normal day, using of language is not important. But the thing is that we have to understand while we are communicating with each other, whether the listener is able to understand your language or not. That's the most important thing. And the speaker who is conveying the message and who is giving information, the speaker has to speak and the speaker has to communicate in a proper way that whether it may be verbal or non-verbal or paraverbal, whatever it may be, the communication needs to convey the message to the listener. That's the most important thing for a good communication. And while we're communicating with expression, experience, that must be hearing and smelling, seeing, tasting, touch. So communication is a series of experience of all these things. And hearing means people who are normally hearing any of the speech, whether they are contracting, whether they are concentrating or not. If they are not concentrating on the speaker's voice, they are not able to understand anything. And smelling means here we have to look at the taste of the language. We have to observe properly. That's what about the communication of series of experience. Seeing means it's observation, keen observation needed for listening information. And tasting is also that we have to taste the language, we have to taste the experiences, we have to taste the communication. And touching. Touching is also we can come to know as a communication of series. Then what is communication skills? Communication skills is the ability to use the language, receptive and expressive information. Effective communication skills are critical element in your career and personal lives. So communication is not only an important thing in our life, but communication needs in effective way to develop yourself as well as developing the nation or developing your own personality. So like that here, communication skills, they are the ability to use the language and the receptive and expressive and express information. Communication skills are just they can receptive and they can express the information. But effective communication skills are needed in critical elements in your career and personal lives. So without of effective communication skills, you need not to get success in your life. So whatever it may be, and while you're building your character also, it is first and foremost important thing is that you should be a good communicator in communication skills. Otherwise, you may not a good communicator. If you are not a good communicator towards others, and you don't build your character. So like that, for building your character, for your attending interviews, whatever it may be, for getting jobs, and each and every aspect may each and every aspect may definitely you should have to consist some sort of some communication skills towards everything. So you every person need effective communication skills. They are critical element in everyone's career as well as the personal lives. And communication skill goals. Communication also. What we have to go through with the communication goals. To change in the behavior of an individual, to get an action, and don't try to go through with the action of the Hamlet in Hamlet. Hamlet, what does the Hamlet do? That means what did Hamlet has done in the drama? He delayed. Problem of delay. He delayed to recognize, and he delayed to take the revenge. So we have to get some sort of action at the proper time in a proper way. So communication goals may definitely change your behavior, and it may be get to ensure you to do some sort of actions towards the information, to ensure the understanding. They may definitely ensure you to understand if you are a good communicator, to persuade, and to get and give information. And if we can have the proper information, definitely we are going to give the information to others. So these are the major communicative skills. And most common ways to communicate in normal way. How can we communicate with the other people? Definitely, yes. As we are all human beings, we are only the eligible persons to speak the language, and we are developed our own language, and we are speaking our language, and in this way we can communicate with each other by with speaking, and we can communicate with each other writing. We are also developed the language alphabets, and we are also communicate with the people like visual images, and we can communicate the people by body language also. By body language we are also able to communicate each other. So these are the most common ways to the communicate with the people or with each other. How can we communicate with the people or each other? By with speaking, with writing, with body language, and some sort of visual images. And the types of communication. On the basis of organization and relationship, there may be formal and informal communications. On the basis of flow, they may be called as vertical, crosswise, diagonal, horizontal. On the basis of expression, oral, written, gesture. Gesture means in the way of your body posture, and the way of your way, and the way of your speaking or your sign. Sign means how you are going to do with your express the feelings with your body language. So there are some types of the communications on the basis of organization relationship. We can go through with the formal and informal communication, and on the basis of flow, we can see the vertical and crosswise, and diagonal. Then we can see horizontal. On the basis of expression, oral, written, gesture. And the barriers of communication, simply we can understand how we are going to barrier, where how there are barriers to the communication that maybe we can understand. Semantic barriers, emotional psychological barriers, organizational barriers, barriers of superiors. So barriers of communication is there are four types. One is a semantic barrier, and another one is a emotional barrier that may be also called a psychological barrier, and the third one is organizational barriers, and the fourth one is barriers of superiors. Look at the semantic barriers. How can we go through with the semantical barriers means with the symbols or with the different meanings, with the symbols and with the different meanings, we are going to express the semantic barriers with the symbols and with the different meanings. We are going to express our semantic barriers and badly expressed messages. They may be also semantic barriers and the faculty translations. They may be also semantic barriers, unclarified assumptions. If we are not able to give the proper information, they may be called as semantic barriers, and specialist languages. They may be semantic barriers. Emotional or psychological barriers, they may be premature evaluations, inattention. Premature evaluation means the listener is not able to understand what the speaker is speaking and what is the information is about. If they are not able to understand the information is about, then they are not able to concentrate on what the communication is, what the information is. So that is called premature evaluation. Inattention, there may be some sort of so many people they are not able to concentrate, or so many people they are not give attention towards your information. And loss of transformation or poor retention. Maybe if you are not a good communicator, if you are not able to speak properly, if you are not able to speak the language, or whether you are not able to communicate with the other person in a proper way, that is also the loss of transformation or poor retention. Undue reliance on the written word. Undue reliance means if they are not able to understand the written communication, that may be also an emotional psychological barrier. And failure to communicate. And failure to communicate may be also an emotional psychological barriers. Organizational barriers, organizational policy, and maybe each and every organization has its own different policies. So whether if we want to communicate with the higher officials, we have to get contact with the first his PA or his personal secretary and whatever it may be. So here, that may be if you take the permission, if you take the from the CA personal secretary, then you can communicate with your higher official. That's what we can see in the institutions and we can see in the companies. That's what organizational policy is. And organizational rules and regulations, they may be are different, and according to their rules and regulations, they may be carried as a barriers of the communication. In status and relation, status and relation means in status means we can see the superiors and inferior. We can see the managers and we can see the some personalities with different post levels. They may be called as status of status. Relation means how they are going to communicate with the people or not people. That is most important for the status relation. And the complexity in organization, complexity is must needed, and we need good communication in complexity. And try to understand another important thing is that while we are speaking the language at home, we use our normal use of language. While we are speaking at a public place like institution or colleges or schools, where, and with higher officials, our language should be totally different from our home. So then we use different languages while we are in different situations. And whatever maybe we need formal language in organization, and so that if we cannot if we can speak the language while we are at home, that is not a proper language in organization barriers. And personal barriers, barriers in superior, like attitude of superior, fear of challenge of authority, lack of time, lack of awareness. So barriers of superior means they may be some people they may so that is if according to the status in the company or in organization, some people may show their attitude as superior. And fear of challenge, fear of challenge can be also seen in according to the authority. And the lack of time, lack of awareness, lack of ignoring, lack of knowledge is also plays a dominant role as a barriers of personal communication. And barriers in subordinates, unwillingness to communicate, and lack of proper incentive. And that means if subordinates, if they are not able to communicate with others in a proper way, that we can see they can show their unwillingness to communicate his higher officials. That's what the main problem about the communication, and they may be lead lack of proper incentives. They may be lead lack of proper incentives, and that cannot be acceptable as a good communicator. And the process of communication, how we are going to communicate, and then what we can observe in the communication that we can see. And how can we start with the communication? Yes, we can see the communication with sender. That means who is giving the information, proper information. That is what the sender, and use the channel to transmit the message. And they can try to express. The sender has to try to express, and the receiver has to receive. And here, the transmission, they can sender is expressing his noise to receiver, and as well as the sender is also able to concentrate on listening what he is speaking. That's what we have to understand. If they are not able to speak in a proper language, they may be not a good communicator. So he has to know what he is speaking about, and receiver has to do, and he has to give his feedback in a proper way after listening process. So communication is the process of sending and receiving information among the people. And a man who is giving or who is a sender or a receiver, he has to take the proper attention towards the listening. So what it may be, sender may becomes the receiver, and receiver may becomes sender of the communication process. So it is what sending and receiving the information among the people is called the process of communication. Communication code schemes. How can we code the schemes? We, if you can say the tree, sender can send a message as tree, and it was codified with the word TREE, tree. But and while the receiver speaker, he is also codifying his code about the image of the tree, and the receiver, he is decoding and decodifying the tree as the imagination, and how it becomes a tree. So this is an apple means simply if I write an apple on the blackboard, you can easily understand apple is a fruit, and you know the shape of the apple, and you know the taste of the apple, and that's what the a communication code scheme has to be said. Communication involves three components. They are verbal messages, paraverbal messages, and non-verbal messages. That means types of communication. There may be components of three, and they may be involves in communication. They are verbal messages, verbal communication, paraverbal communication. Otherwise, we can say the non-verbal communication. In the word we choose paraverbal communication. The words we choose is called as verbal messages, verbal communications. And paraverbal communication means how we use to say the word, in what way, in what type of way, and how we are able to use the words in communication. They may be called as paraverbal communication. And non-verbal communication, it is about our body language. They are about our body language. So these three components are used to in send the clear or concise messages. Send the clear messages are three components can be used to clear or send the clear messages and concise the messages. Then receive and correctly understand what the message is. They may be received and understand and what the correct message is sent to us. So sending the messages and the effective and verbal messages. Sending the effective and verbal message. In brief, succinct and organized. In brief means how we can send the messages. In effective verbal messages, we should have to be brief and succinct and organized way we have to speak. And if you can speak like in the slideshow like blah 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 blah, it cannot be audible to the listener. So if the listener is not able to understand your language in an audible manner, he may not give response. So that is what the message cannot have or communication cannot have the proper way of treatment or free to jargon. So we have to speak feel free, and if we can, if we cannot able to communicate with the people, they may be lead a different and sufficient situations, and do not create resistance in the listeners. So don't try to create resistance in listener activities. And for non-verbal messages are the primary way that we communicate emotions. So facial expressions, like the first picture you may understand in the slideshow, yeah, he is laughing. And second picture you can understand, he is while he is looking about the first picture, he is laughing and he is in a happy mood. And the second first picture, he is expressing his pride or he is expressing his exclamatory. And third picture you can observe he is angry. He is angry towards the speaker, listener. And posters and guests may all also are on communication barriers. And the paraverbal messages, paraverbal communication refers to the messages that we transmit through the tone and the pitch and facing our voices. I don't say you are stupid. I didn't say you were stupid. I didn't say you were stupid. So this is what paraverbal communication means about the language of the importance, and where we are going to give the so much of force of the stress, or where we are going to stress and pronounce a particular word that may be called as paraverbal communication. That refers the message that we transmit through the tone, pitch, and basing our voices. I didn't say that you are stupid. I didn't say you're stupid. I didn't say you were stupid. I didn't say you were stupid. So this is the change of the paraverbal and maybe word ways and the tone and the pitch of facing intonation voices are stupid. And receiving the messages. Listening requires the concentration and energy. If you cannot have concentration on listening, you may not be a good communicator. So that needs energy and concentration must in the process of receiving the information as well as the message as well as the communication. And it involves a psychological connection with the speaker. It involves receiving messages may involves the psychological connection with the speaker. If the speaker is able to understand that you are not concentrating on the words of listening, and he may divert to unnecessary messages. So that's what we have to understand. If we need any necessary messages, we have to involve with the receiving messages. And if we are not able to involve with the receiving messages, they may be speaker may be divert the important messages. and it includes a desire and willingness to try and see things from other perspectives. Requires that it includes a desire and willingness and try and see things from other another perspectives, and it also requires the requires that what we suspend the judgment and evaluation. And it requires, if we cannot able to receive the information in a proper way, it may be suspend the judgment and evaluation of the information. And the key listening skills. How can we listen the skill listening? How can we understand the speaker's voice for good communicator? And in communication, listening skills also plays a dominant role, like a nonverbal. Giving full psychological, physical attention to the speaker is the most important. Giving full attention, full physical attention towards the speaker is most important. And being aware of the speakers and nonverbal messages. Being aware of the speakers and nonverbal messages may be involved in key listening activity. For verbal, paying attention to the word and feelings that are being expressed. Paying attention to the words and the feelings that were being expressed by the speaker. And what makes a good communication? A good communication needs clarity, adequacy, integrity, and timing. If you can go through with the good, if you want to be a good communicator of the language, and you should have clarity in your communication and adequacy in your communication, and integrity and timing is also important for a good communicators. And how do you develop your communication skills? To explore the related skills. And how can we explore the related skills? Communication skills involves oral, written, and non-verbal. For oral skills, we have to go through with the presentation, audience awareness, critical listening, body language. We have to concentrate on these skills to develop our communication skills to explore the related way. And for written, academic writing, divisions and editing, and critical reading and presentation of data may need for good communication in written. And for non-verbal communications, audience awareness, personal presentation, then body language may be involves in good communication. And how we have to develop our communication skills to explore related this, like oral. From the oral, we have to go through with the presentation and audience awareness, critical listening, body language. And for written, academic reading, revision of reading, listen of written form, and editing and critical reading. And for presentation of data is also in the written form. For non-verbal communication skills, we have to do audience awareness as well as the personal presentation, then the body language. And some tips to good communication skills. At last, effective communication skills. Maintain eye contact with the audience. Try to maintain eye contact with the audience, otherwise they may mislead, and they may be in a classroom also we have to go through with each and every student's eye contact, otherwise they may not concentrate on what we are speaking about. So eye contact may teachers may definitely they have their own eye contacts, but what it may be, if you want to be a communicator, if you want to some tips about the communication skills, you can try to maintain the eye contact with the audience, body languages and body awareness also, and bounce bits, postures also some of the importance. And gesture and expressions, they may be also most important for a good communicator. And convey one's thoughts. Convey one's thoughts. That is also most important. And practice effective communication skills. Try to practice effective communication skills. And we will also have so many things that we can see for effective communication skills. But what it may be, we need so many things to learn about the communication skills, but later on, we will learn later on. And from this, I would like to conclude my session.